Meet Adam and Sammy. They're both 30 years old. They both earn $58,000 a year. They've both got $12,000 saved, the first real money either of them has ever had. And they can both put aside $200 a month, every month, without fail. Same age, same income, same savings, same discipline. There is nothing separating these two men, except one thing. What they believe money is for. Adam believes money should be safe. He watched his parents lose a chunk of theirs, and he has no interest in repeating it. Sammy believes money should be working, that anything sitting still is quietly going backwards. 30 years from now, one of them will have about $110,000. The other will have around $469,000. Neither of them saved more than the other. Not $1. Let's follow them. Adam opens a savings account. He gets a rate of about 1.5%, and he does everything the responsible way. The $12,000 goes in, and $200 is set up to move across automatically on payday, so he never has to think about it. When his balance ticks over a round number, he notices, and it feels good. The thing Adam likes most about this account, and he'd tell you this himself, is that the number only ever goes up. It has never once been lower than the day before. For a man whose family lost money, that is not a small feature. That's the whole product. Sammy puts his $12,000 into a total stock market index fund. Then he sets up the same $200 a month automatically into the same fund. Then he closes the app. He owns a fractional slice of several thousand businesses. Factories, shops, software firms, logistics companies. He can't visit any of them. He can't point at anything. There's nothing to show anyone. And crucially, he has no idea what it'll be worth next year. And he has accepted that. His view is that over 30 years, the businesses will earn money and he'll get a share. And everything in between is noise he's not going to look at. Two men, same money. One chose certainty. One chose ownership. On day one, Adam looks like the sensible one, and it isn't close. His money is there. All of it. He can log in and see $12,000, and tomorrow he'll see $12,000 and a bit more. If he needs it on Thursday, it's there on Thursday. There is no scenario in which Adam wakes up with less than he went to sleep with. Sammy logs in a week later, and his $12,000 is worth $11,600. Nothing happened. No news, no crisis. It just moved, the way it moves every week, and he's $400 down for no reason he could explain to anyone. When their friends talk about money, Adam has a straightforward answer. He's saving. He's got a plan. He's being careful. People nod. Sammy says he's in the market, and the conversation moves on, because there's nothing to ask him about. One of these men is doing something that feels like control. The other is doing something that feels like waiting. 3 years in, the feeling and the facts still agree. Let's stop and compare. Adam's $12,000 has grown to about $12.5. He's added $7,200 in monthly deposits. Total, $19,900. Every single month of those 3 years, the number was higher than the month before. 36 months. 36 small wins. Sammy has put in exactly the same $19,200 of his own money. And in year 2, the market fell 35%. Sammy's total, $14,600. He is $5,300 behind Adam. And, this is the part that matters, he is $4,600 below what he actually put in. 3 years of discipline, and he has less than he deposited. This is the moment the entire outcome is decided. and it has nothing to do with arithmetic. Sammy's friends have never once down. Sammy is at 40,000. Somewhere in year 5, quietly, the line crossed. There was no moment, no announcement. Sammy didn't notice for months. But look at what actually happened here, because it wasn't the recovery. The market got back to where it started. That alone would have put Sammy roughly level. What put him ahead were the shares he bought while it was down. The crash didn't just cost him, it also handed him 4 years of cheap buying, and he only collected on that because he didn't stop. Now, Adam's position. This is where I have to introduce the cost he can't see. Over those 7 years, prices rose about 3% a year. Adam's $31,000 buys what roughly $25,200 would have bought when he started. His account has never gone down. His money has. Every single year, reliably, with no chart, no crash, and no moment where anyone told him it happened. Adam's protecting himself from the risk he can see. He's fully exposed to the one he can't. And it's worth being clear about what he actually bought with that 1.5%. Adam lent his money to a bank. The bank lent it out again at 6, 9, 22%. Adam supplied the raw material for that business, took the risk that the bank might fail, and received 1.5% of what it produced. He is not a customer of that bank. He's a supplier, the cheapest one it has. Year 10. And this is the checkpoint where I want to be honest with you. Because the clean version of this story isn't true. Adam is at $39,800. Sammy, on paper, is at about $78,000. Nearly double. Story over, you'd think. Except year 10 also contains the second crash. And at the bottom of it, Sammy's account showed $52,000. So at that moment, and it lasted months, not days, Sammy was 12,000 ahead of a man who had taken no risk at all. After 10 years of accepting every bit of volatility the market had, 10 years of stomach-turning for $12,000. And here is the honest question, the one most videos like this skip. Would you still be holding? Because at that trough, Sammy is being told, again by people who love him, that he has spent a decade proving nothing. The gap is small enough to look like noise. Selling would lock in a perfectly respectable result. Every argument for getting out is available, and several of them sound extremely reasonable. At year 10, I don't think either of these men has clearly won. Adam has certainty and a slow leak. Sammy has a bigger number and no idea whether he'll keep it. The entire difference between them is still, at this point, a bet on Sammy's behavior, rather than on Sammy's arithmetic. That is the real reason most people end up as Adam. Not ignorance. Almost everyone knows stocks beat savings accounts. They end up as Adam because being Sammy at year 3 and year 10 is genuinely, physically unpleasant. And nobody warns you that the unpleasantness is the price. That's what you're being paid for, not cleverness. That. Now step back from both of them. Because underneath this race, there's one question, and it isn't stocks or savings. Adam is a lender. He handed his money to an institution, took a fixed, small, predetermined payment, and owns nothing. Whatever his money went on to do, he gets the same 1.5%. Sammy is an owner. He carries what real businesses actually do, the good years and the catastrophes, and receives what they actually earn. That's the entire gap. Not risk tolerance, not intelligence, not timing. One of them was paid for waiting, and one of them was paid for owning. And once you see the distinction, you'll notice it's not a modern financial idea at all. There's a body of law that's spent about 1,400 years on exactly this line, and it comes down hard on one side of it. Hold that thought for 2 minutes. Year 30. Both men are 60. Both have deposited exactly $84,000 of their own money, $12,000 at the start, and $200 a month for 360 months. Not a dollar of difference. Adam. $109,600. 30 years of saving turned $84,000 into $109. The account gave him $25,600, about $71 a month, averaged across 3 decades. And in real terms, after inflation, he has less buying power than the day he started. Sammy. $468,900. $359,300 apart. And notice where that gap came from. At year 3, it was $5,000, in Adam's favor. At year 10, it was arguably nothing. More than half of Sammy's final number arrived in the last 8 years. Compounding does almost nothing for a very long time, and then does almost everything. Which is exactly why the choice is so easy to get wrong. The cost of getting it wrong isn't visible until it's far too late to fix. Sammy got lucky. You picked 30 good years. Run it over a bad 30, and this video looks different. Fair. And I'll concede properly. 8.5% is a long-run historical average, not a promise. There are real 30-year stretches. Japan from 1990 is the obvious one, where that assumption would have been badly wrong. Run Sammy at 6% instead, and he finishes around 268,000, rather than 469. Still 2.5 times Adam, but the number moves, and anyone who tells you it can't is selling something. Second concession. Adam's certainty is worth real money. If you need your savings in 4 years, Adam's approach is correct, and Sammy's is reckless. Nothing in this video applies to money you'll need soon. What the objection doesn't touch is that Adam's outcome required no bad luck at all. He didn't get an unlucky 30 years. He got a normal one, and finished with less buying power than he started with. Sammy's downside needs a historic disaster to appear. Adam's downside is the base case. There was a third man. Bilal. Same age, same 58,000 salary, same 12,000 saved, same 200 a month. He didn't like Adam's answer. And he had a problem with Sammy's. His problem was this. Sammy owns several thousand businesses, and he's never once looked at what they are. A meaningful share of them are banks and insurers whose entire product is lending money at a price. And Bilal thinks getting rich off the interest system while complaining about it is incoherent. So Bilal bought ownership too, but screened. His fund excludes conventional banking and insurance, alcohol, gambling, tobacco, weapons, and adult content. And it also screens the balance sheet. Companies carrying interest-bearing debt above about 1/3 of their value are out. Because owning them means owning the debt. This is the same principle Sammy got right, made explicit. And finished with less buying power than he started with. Sammy's downside needs a historic disaster to appear. Adam's downside is the base case. There was a third man. Bilal. Same age, same 58,000 salary, same 12,000 saved, same 200 a month. He didn't like Adam's answer. And he had a problem with Sammy's. His problem was this. Sammy owns several thousand businesses, and he's never once looked at what they are. A meaningful share of them are banks and insurers whose entire product is lending money at a price. And Bilal thinks getting rich off the interest system while complaining about it is incoherent. So Bilal bought ownership too, but screened. His fund excludes conventional banking and insurance, alcohol, gambling, tobacco, weapons, and adult content. And it also screens the balance sheet. Companies carrying interest-bearing debt above about a third of their value are out. Because owning them means owning the debt. This is the same principle Sammy got right, made explicit. In Islamic finance, you may not rent out money. That's Riba, and it's prohibited outright. Because a return should attach to doing something and carrying its risk, not to the passage of time. What you may do is own, and take a share of what ownership genuinely produces, losses included. The classical form is mudaraba. One side brings capital, the other brings work. They agree a profit split in advance, and if it loses money, the capital provider bears the loss. Sammy's index fund is that structure, by accident. Bilal's is that structure, on purpose. And now the number. Because I'm not going to give you the brochure. Bilal, Finland, with $418,800. $50,100 behind Sammy. Screening costs you. Fewer companies, slightly higher fees, and excluding financials means you sit out the years when banks rally. In 2008, that exclusion was a gift. In other years, it's a bill. Over 30 years, on these assumptions, the bill was $50,000. And there's also a purification step, a small share of income that came from incidental interest, which you give away rather than keep. So Bilal didn't win. He finished second, deliberately. And he'd tell you the $50,000 was the price of a portfolio he could actually explain. He also finished $309,000 ahead of Adam, which is the number that matters. Because the real choice most people face isn't Sammy versus Bilal. It's whether to be an owner at all. So what does it actually depend on? Not intelligence. All three of these men understood the options. It depends on whether you can hold a position through year 3 and year 10, when everyone you trust is telling you to stop, and on whether you want the last 50,000 or the clean conscience. Those are real trade-offs, and they don't have one right answer. What isn't a trade-off is Adam. Adam took a guaranteed slow loss and was told it was safety. Next time, 2 men buy the identical car on the same day for the same price, and one of them pays $8,000 more. Run the numbers, then run them halal.